The process of becoming a pilot is complex and multifaceted, and if it is not just a pilot but an air fighter. It so happened that the process of my formation took place directly in battles, and I practiced in the most natural conditions. It was at the time of big, important events, the liberation of Donbass from Hitler's occupants, the rapid offensive of our troops on Kharkov. Then there was one of the most important battles of the Great Patriotic War at the Kursk Bulge. These events influenced the process of our maturation, though we took part not in all the battles of that period. Our regiment was a part of the division, which was a part of the Southern Front, which from the end of winter to the beginning of summer 1943, fighting local battles, and diverting significant enemy forces, thus alleviating the situation on other fronts. We closely followed the general situation. At the entrance to the CP hung a large map on which almost daily appeared new red flags, denoting the liberated by Soviet troops settlements. It is easy to imagine my state of mind when I saw the lines of flags getting closer and closer to the nice, euphonious geographical name Izium. The most popular people in the regiment were now political workers. Even agitators we warmly called commissars. "Well, come on, Commissar, tell us," the pilots asked the agitator. "What's new?" And the news went one by one better. Party and Komsomol meetings aimed the personnel at glorious deeds, at heroic feats, and we, not for the sake of glory, but for the sake of victory, tried to make every combat sortie as effective as possible, to inflict as much damage to the enemy as possible. Studying the map of combat operations, I imagined our southern front as a shoulder, set up for other fronts, southwestern, steppe, Voronezh, central. In front of us was, as the Nazis called it, the Mayas front. Here the enemy turned his positions into the strongest defensive frontier. Especially many fortifications were erected in the spring and summer of 1943. From the height of flights I could see dark lines of trenches, passages of communication. Intelligence reported that Hitlerites build pillboxes, bunkers, dugouts, dig anti-tank ditches, set all kinds of obstacles. The enemy command ordered its 6th Army to hold the line on the Mayas, believing that the fate of Donbass would be decided here. On the night of July 17th to 18th, our southern front went on the offensive, seeking to defeat the enemy's 6th Army units. At the same time, our neighbours, the troops of the southwestern front, deployed offensive battles in the Izium-Barvinkovsky direction, having the task of defeating the Army Group Kampf, the 1st Tank Army and the 6th Army of the enemy. We flew a lot. One combat mission was replaced by another, and I practiced mastering all kinds of combat applications. Sovinform Bureau reports, condensed to a few phrases, were passed on to each other by word of mouth. Have you heard, Anatoly? Fighting is going on in the area of Izium and Lugansk. Our troops have forced the Seversky Donets. This is Bikbilatov shouting to me from afar. He smiled, he was pleased to give me good news. In the evening, though I was tired, and I wanted to lie down sooner to get up at daylight and rush to the airfield again, I was looking for newspapers. Exactly fighting in the area of Izium. The next day I read the Soviet aviation by large forces made night raids on railroad junctions Oral, Lozovaya, Kramatorskaya, stations Karachaifi, Kartsaskaya and airfields of the enemy. And a few more days later, the troops of the southwestern front fought fierce battles on captured bridgeheads in the area of Izium. These lines seemed to call me to new martial deeds, and I was eager to go to the place where the battle was boiling to bring the enemy retribution for myself, for my relatives, and for my native city, and for all our people, for the whole fatherland. 2 weeks lasted offensive operation of the southern front troops on the Mias River, during which the enemy was defeated. This operation attracted large forces of fascists from the Belgorod direction, which contributed to the success of our troops in the Battle of Kursk. In those events my wings were getting stronger. Every day I was getting stronger, defeating the enemy more confidently. The battles continued. I go one early morning to the parking lot, and even from afar I see there is already a boiling life there. Aviation specialists are busy with the attack aircraft. Gasoline and oil refuelers are moving from plane to plane. Some of the pilots are already here. One observes how skillful hands of mechanics heal the wounds in the airplane's skin, Another is interested to be present at the engine adjustment. The third is interested in how the routine work is performed. And air gunners compete for the speed of troubleshooting and delays of the turret machine gun. It is interesting to look at. I remembered how we with Maliuk, because of these very malfunctions, tested our fate. Senior Lieutenant Verona, the squadron's weapons chief, is in charge of the competition. This is a kind of practical training, during which the air gunner acquires skills no less important than the ability to hit the target. If the machine gun is in good working order, if there is ammunition, you shooters can confidently consider yourselves the shield of the rear hemisphere of the attack aircraft combat order, says Senior Technician Verona, among those whom he praised, and my gunner Anton Maliuk. I am sincerely happy for him. With such a combat assistant, cannot worry the rear is reliably covered. I approach my airplane. Mechanics in turn report to me what they are doing. As usual, I accept the report, tell them to continue. And then I go aside for a smoke. I watch as a blonde-haired, chucklehead Sasha Cherkova fiddles in the compartment of small arms and cannon. Hello. I quickly turn to the voice. Good morning, comrade dispatcher. Katusha was standing next to me. You're here early, comrade guard sergeant. That's the way it is. I'm looking for the chief engineer. Have you seen Captain Klubov? No, I haven't seen him. I was told he was in your squadron's parking lot. Father Alyoshin suddenly called out to someone. I was surprised these words referred to Captain Klubov. What's the matter? Klubov is Alyoshin's father, but first of all he's too young to be her father, and the last names are different. I hear Alyoshin talking to Klubov. The regiment commander is calling you. What's wrong, my daughter? I don't know. I think some superiors are flying in. Report, my daughter, I'll be right there. Katya left, and I wondered in bewilderment, who is Katya's Klubov? Finally, I couldn't stand it. Excuse me, comrade captain. Could I ask you a delicate question? Please. Katya is your daughter. Daughter? Why? I expressed my doubts. Klubov answered. An adopted daughter. He smiled warmly and added confidentially. You see, Katya is very much like my little one Alenka. To be more precise, my little girl looks like Katya. I once told Katya about it. So I adopted her, I guess. I have a lot of adopted daughters in my regiment. Count how many girl mechanics I have under my command. That's right, brother. I've already heard that our senior engineer patronizes girls. In his person they saw a man who could come to their aid in a difficult moment, to protect them from some annoying suitors, so they saw in Klubov a man of great soul. It is not for nothing that I like him so much. The train of thought was interrupted. I sat down in the cabin and started training, and it required special concentration, attentive, clear, conscious actions with the cabin fittings. I conducted training in the cabin systematically and gradually brought my actions to automatism. Now they, perhaps, could be compared to clearly practiced movements of a musician performing a complex work on the stage. I was firmly convinced that training helps to polish the skill. Miss it even once and skills are lost. Suddenly a command ran through the parking lot formation. And soon a PO2 shot up in the sky and sat down at the airfield. We learned that flew the commander of the Air Army, General T.T. Kryukin. Here he came down to the ground, and the regiment commander, Major Lyakovsky, addressed him with a report. Then the two of them approached the formation. The general said hello to the personnel, said something to Lyakovsky. Pilots and air gunners he commanded to gather at the command post. All others dispersed to their places. At the command post there is a small hill covered with thick grass. The hot summer sun had scorched it, and now, when the fog began to moisten the ground at dawn, the emerald silk of young grass broke through the yellow and grey shriveled stalks to the light. This is where we set up. This will make our conversation go better, said the general simply, and explained I came here, comrades, to talk to you about combat work. I had to talk to such a big chief for the first time. Timofey Timofeyevich Kryukin made a great impression on everyone. Tall, slender blonde with correct facial features, he disposed to himself interlocutors, called for frankness. He held himself freely, talked as an equal with equals. And this gold star on his chest, hero of the Soviet Union. The commander had known many of our pilots for a long time. He asked them about the number of combat sorties, about the ways of impact on enemy targets and tactical methods of fighting with enemy fighters. He told about the actions of pilots of related regiments, cited the most interesting and instructive examples of their combat practice. The atmosphere was relaxed, the conversation was frank and honest. The general listened very carefully to the pilots, telling about the use of the 6 combat order circle, bearing, wedge. The guys expressed their opinion about their advantages and disadvantages, about how they relate to each of the combat order. The most difficult, and this was the general opinion, was the circle. It required from pilots high skill, great tension, keen attention and personal responsibility. In our regiment this combat order was not instilled. First, because for young pilots maneuver was difficult and complex, and secondly, and this was considered the main thing because of the entrenched opinion, as if the circle more often there are losses. I too, until now, preferred to assault the enemy in the combat order wedge or bearing, when the entire 6 at the same time, at the command of the leader, dive on the target, according to his own calculation makes a bombing run, shoots and leaves the attack. When the circle is more complicated, 6 Ilyushinia, as if rotating over the target giant wheel, tilted to the horizon line at 40 degrees. Aircraft alternately, at intervals attack the target, and with a left turn out of the attack. One attack aircraft leaves, and the next behind him at this time dives on the target. The attacks are continuous. A kind of carousel effectively affect the enemy for 10 to 15 minutes, suppressing its fire points, destroying equipment and manpower. We listened attentively to the general, mentally building a circle, imagining ourselves as part of this huge wheel. And suddenly we heard a rapidly increasing rumble of engines. All at once turned their heads in the direction from where the murmur was coming, but they could not see anything, the sun was blinding their eyes. What kind of planes? Their own or enemy? Why do not announce the alarm? But the commander is calm. Looking at the approaching planes, he smiles. Ours. Someone finally determined it. Here is already visible 6 attack aircraft. It goes dense, almost parade formation right bearing. We even admired it. The commander sat down on the grass and also began to watch the airplanes. Here they are already over our airfield. And then the leader made a sharp turn. Wingman followed him. Meanwhile, he turned the plane into a dive and directed it directly at us. Only now it all became clear to us. The army commander arranged for us a demonstration exercise demonstrated how attack aircraft should act in combat order circle. I closely observed the airplanes circling overhead. Everything is precisely calculated and subordinated to a clear rhythm. Between the planes a strictly established distance. Rolling from wing to wing, they perform an anti-reverse maneuver, spiking, at the very ground attack aircraft out of the attack and quickly gains altitude. Rapidly rushing down the machine, the deafening roar of the engine. And if the guns and machine guns come into action, if bombs fly, fear ears. Yes, not in vain the Germans call our alias Black Death. Finally, the last attack and the attacking planes, having reorganized into a wedge, leave. This picture amazed us all. We were convinced of the expediency of using such a combat order, and General Kryukin said in farewell, "I believe that you will master the circle and successfully apply it in battle." So with the circle began a peculiar turn in our combat work. Now everyone was even more carefully preparing for the next flight on a combat mission, remembering that he will have to act over the target independently, to act bravely, decisively and boldly. The air battles that followed after the visual lesson confirmed that the science was good. Almost all the seats in the dining room are occupied. Dinner is in full swing. Together with us now eat and fighter pilots of the cover groups. Their commanders Senior Lieutenants A, Britikov and V. Konstantinov, good guys, reliable comrades, our loyal friends. Later they both became heroes of the Soviet Union. Just stepped on the threshold, I hear the familiar voice of Tarakanov. Anatoly, come and join us, there is a place. I sat down next to Nikolai. At the long table Bikbilatov, Zaplavsky, Beda and a few other fighter pilots unfamiliar to me. All in a cheerful mood. I feel that our humorist Alexander Zaplavsky has already made sure that the comrades were in a good mood. Inexhaustible in jokes, a passionate anecdotist, Lieutenant Zaplavsky was the man in the regiment who was not only loved for his kind disposition, but also respected for his open heart, sociability, and most importantly, for his high fighting qualities. He flew perfectly, fought bravely. I guess the object of friendly jokes was Leonid Beda. He himself is smiling too. The thing is that Lenya was not tall enough. That's why a funny story will happen to him every now and then. Trouble with Beda, they told me, began as soon as he arrived in the regiment. In the clothing warehouse there was no officer's uniform and boots of such a small size, which was needed to equip the newcomer. And Leonid for a long time went in a soldier's overcoat and boots with winding as an infantry soldier. Once even the mechanic of his own plane did not recognize him. "Why are you loitering around, soldier?" he shouted at him when trouble appeared at the attack plane. There was also such a thing. Once at Stalingrad, Leonid came out of the battle on a wounded airplane, and he himself was wounded. He had to land the machine on its belly, with the landing gear retracted outside the airfield. A mechanic was sent to the landing place. Soon he returned. On his face confusion, surprise. He reports to the commander the airplane is badly damaged, the lantern is jammed, the cockpit is empty, there is a parachute on the seat, and there is no pilot. One of the pilots heard it and said, "Trouble is in the mess hall." And the following happened. Beda landed the airplane, started to pull the lantern lock, but it would not budge. How to get out of the cabin? He opened the side window of the lantern, put his head and shoulder through it, moved forward, squeezed through and slipped on the dural of the centerplane. Fortunately, the wound was light. The wound was bandaged in the sanitary unit, and the pilot flatly refused to go to the hospital. On the way to the control room, Beda went to the canteen. Meanwhile, aviation experts have calculated in the wings, fuselage and tail plumage was more than 300 holes. Our trouble really flew on his word of honor, and on one wing, just like the song says. I heard this story from many pilots. The guys also told it in the presence of Leonid. He did not deny anything, only smiled slyly. Legends, one funnier than the other, were formed in the regiment and then. But Leonid Beda understood that the nature of all these jokes benevolent loved him in the regiment, admired his courage, bravery, skill. One had only to wonder how much courage, inexhaustible hatred of the enemy in this kid. It was a pilot of the highest class. His feats were worthily appreciated by the motherland. Leonid Beda was twice awarded the highest award of the country, the Gold Star of Hero. So we are sitting at the table and Zaplavsky is telling a new story. And no smile on his face, no chuckle in his eyes, everything seemed to be just as it was no fiction. Once we performed a combat mission as a unit. Leonid and I were wingmen. Bombed the enemy, stormed in general, everything as it should be. And what happened? Suddenly a messer crashes on me. "Were you flying without cover?" one of the fighter pilots asked. "Yes, without cover," answered Zaplavsky, and continued. "I see a wasp coming towards me. In the cockpit, this face. I even noticed the lints under the eyes of the kraut. He shows something with his fingers and gestures. I guessed he asks who to hit me or Beda. No, I shake my head. Not me, I point my finger at Beda him. He has a long nose, and I have a potato nose, he realized. The bastard, he was smart. He ducked again. He's gone and gone. And suddenly I see him running around near Lenny. He's trying to come from the left or from the right. Suddenly he gave a candle. The kraut was afraid of something. What is it, I think? It turns out that the kraut imagined that the airplane was flying without a pilot. And Lenya, do you know what he did? He threw the cushions out from under him, and he was out of sight in the cockpit. The pilots burst out laughing. Leonid Beda is smiling. What an inventor, what a storyteller. Jokes are jokes, but it turns out that without us fighters you have a hard time, said the senior lieutenant. That's another way of putting it, replied Bikbilatov. Ill-maneuverable machine and can stand up for itself in the air against any fighter. Even your famous Yak would not do anything to my attack aircraft. In response, the senior lieutenant laughed. Tell you what, suggested to the fighter Tarakanov. Instead of proving with words, you better get your regiment commander, and he will get permission from ours measure forces in the air. At the same time, it will be useful for both your and our newcomers to see how an attack aircraft defends itself against a fighter. That's what I'm talking about, shone Bikbilatov. The idea was supported by the commanders of both regiments. At the appointed time, the flight crew gathered near the command posts. Major Lykovsky announced to us, "Now Senior Lieutenant Bikbilatov will hold a demonstration defensive air battle attack aircraft one-on-one with a fighter." IL-2, led by Bikbilatov, leaving behind him a cloud of brown dust, ran across the field, took off, made one circle, the second and gained altitude. And here comes the Yak gaining height, drawing 2 barrels and rushing upwards with a candle. Having gained 2,000 meters, the fighter as if breaks the maneuver and promptly pounced on the attack aircraft. I held my breath. A second, 2, 3. Bikbilatov sharply changes the direction of flight, and the Yak skips past. The attack has failed. The fighter makes a second approach and rushes into the attack again. And again, Bik, quite simple maneuver, easily escapes from under the fire. "Well done, Bik," exclaims Tarakanov. The third attack was made by the fighter at a 1/4 angle, also from dive. Il-2 with a deep turn thwarted his rival's plan. The dispute was decided in favor of the attack aircraft. We were once again convinced our glorious Ilyushin is a wonderful machine, and in skillful hands excellent. Our regiment was tasked to make airstrikes on the nodes of enemy defences, and thus contribute to the development of success of the tank army, which entered the operational space. From dawn till dusk, the pilots of the regiment did not leave the airplane cabin. Making several combat sorties a day, we stormed enemy convoys, shot BMGs with infantry on the approach to the battlefield, bombed clusters of tanks, stormed railroad echelons. All the personnel of the regiment closely followed the course of hostilities. Already hundreds of settlements of Ukraine were liberated from the enemy. But ahead there were still many, very many such points. People were waiting there, calling us. The deputy commander of the regiment on the political part, Guards Major Ivanov, every 2 hours marked a map of the general situation. The red flags were the attention of every aviator. The deputy commander, often here at the map, told us about the events of the day, lifted our spirits, urged us to multiply the glory of the Red Army. Our regiment, following the advancing ground units, flew from one field airfield to another. The sites were chosen closer to the front line, so that it was possible to fly to the target in the shortest possible time and with maximum efficiency to influence the enemy. The beginning of the mass liberation of Ukraine in the regiment was marked by a rally. Major Ivanov opened it. He spoke passionately, fervently, about the power of multinational brotherhood, about the united family, about the unbreakable friendship of the peoples of the Soviet Union. Regiment Commander Major Lykovsky urged the aviators to beat the enemy even harder, to strike him more tangible blows, and thus accelerate the complete liberation of the native land from the fascist barbarians. On the rostrum is the commander of our squadron, Communist Leonid Beda. He now represents the Ukrainian people, and on his behalf thanks his comrades in arms for their determination to fulfill their duty to expel the occupiers from Ukraine. We swear, without sparing our strength and our very lives, to intensify the blows on the enemy standing on one knee. We recited the oath to help the ground troops to develop offensive operations, to drive the retreating enemy over the Dnieper, to pursue him further. Let every blow to the enemy be the most effective. Forward, comrades, for our native Ukraine. Solemnly, majestically sounded the words of the Guard's oath. The hearts of aviators were charged with courage, thirst for exploit. In battles and battles, my fellow soldiers showed examples of fearlessness and heroism. Many were ready to sacrifice themselves for the sake of achieving victory. And soon I experienced another heavy loss. In an unequal battle heroically died Bikbilatov. By this time he was already a senior lieutenant, deputy squadron commander. The war took from me one more battle comrade, my first front commander, teacher and mentor. For a long time I could not come to terms with the thought that our Bik was no longer among us. My comrades also experienced this loss hard. We swore the enemy will pay 100-fold for our favourite commander. By that time I was already a senior pilot. I had more than 50 successful combat sorties, destroyed 10 enemy tanks, 13 vehicles, 4 airplanes, 6 anti-aircraft artillery points, smashed 7 wagons and platforms, killed more than 150 enemy soldiers and officers. I was awarded the Order of the Red Banner and was photographed with the Guards' banner of the unit unfurled. Our crew members were also rewarded for their hard service. Sergeant Motovilov was awarded the Order of the Red Star. Sasha Cherkova received a medal for combat merit. As a senior pilot, I headed a pair and was responsible not only for myself, but also for my comrade, my wingman. And my wingmen were, as a rule, inexperienced pilots who had to be painstakingly taught. I remembered well how recently I myself had been the same, inexperienced. Then senior comrades, commanders taught me, helped me. And now, when a newcomer came to me, I also tried to share my experience with him, to teach him the art of fighting and winning. We had to perform peculiar combat missions, called free hunting. They consisted of this: a pair of attack aircraft was sent to the enemy rear to search for a target, which was struck by a surprise attack. Hunters acted independently, at their own discretion. They chose the most appropriate method of attack. Often the conditions were quite difficult, but we realized that we have a lot of trust, felt our responsibility and tried to make the flight the most effective. At first I was helped by experienced hunters Bikbilatov, Prudnikov, Zaplavsky, Beda. More than once I went with Bikbilatov to search. I looked at his actions, tried to develop the same qualities in myself: restraint, prudence, resourcefulness. Our Bik performed any task with confidence in success. He did not allow even the thought that, for example, to a particular target cannot break through because of strong anti-aircraft fire. Bik has always been able to overcome scent, quickly and accurately hit the target, and get away. I literally bowed before my first teacher for his courage, selflessness, combat skill, and pestered me with questions. Yes, you yourself know everything and can do as well as I do. Bik fought back. How you crush anti-aircraft guns, anyone would envy you. And I'm asking about the railroad train, how to strike it better. Very simple. Bik answered. As soon as you see it, go in, hit it, and everything will be all right. Understand? I understand that, but I don't know how to make a better approach to the target. Bikbilatov took a twig and right on the ground drew a scheme of attacking the enemy echelon, explained the maneuver in detail. If he were near me now. Once I was a part of a pair and flew on a free hunt, but with a specific task to check the frontline dirt roads in the enemy's rear. Before the flight, I replayed the dynamics of the entire flight. I explained to the wingman that he could decide for himself where it was more convenient for him to go to the left, where to the right, when to increase the distance. I reminded him that his main duty was to keep an eye on the air. He took over the search and selection of the target. Determined the fire salvo of the pair 1,200 kilograms of bombs of different caliber with a predominance of fragmentation, with delayed and instantaneous fuses. To this also 16 rockets and 600 cannon shells and about 3,000 rounds of ammunition. All this hospitality prepared by our technical experts. Airplanes are ready for departure, waiting for us. The day before it rained. Cold, prolonged, truly autumnal. The sky was covered with a solid cloud cover. The clouds were floating over the ground. Everything around seems to be painted in a grey tone. We're flying at a breakneck speed. Visibility is spitting. But the sharp eye of the hunter guesses hills and ravines, rivers and forests under the wings. We came to the first road, skipped over it, and began to look at it from the side. We didn't notice anything. 3 more roads are marked on the map. They run almost parallel and converge at the village of Ternavato. 15 kilometers before it we began to make a snake, so that, gradually approaching Ternavatoye, we could see all 3 roads at once. And suddenly I noticed a string of cars on one of them. Oh, it was a discovery for us. We started to make an approach, and then the Oerlikons announced themselves. Then we quickly rearranged the maneuver, attacked the anti-aircraft installation and immediately hit the convoy. We hit the convoy 6 times. We burned 12 trucks, fired guns and machine guns at the infantry and left. Returning home, we suggested to the commander that there should still be enemy columns on the roads. The commander sent several pairs of hunters to that area. They discovered and defeated 2 enemy convoys. Bikbilatov said in his time, "The truth, I have not once participated in the suppression of anti-aircraft batteries, and as part of a 6 and a pair. I had to engage in a duel with anti-aircraft gun and one-on-one. Situations were quite difficult. One case is worth telling about it. Once our squadron received an order to strike at the railroad echelons at Bolshoi Tokmak station, where Hitlerites unloaded tanks and ammunition. Captain Krivoshlak put before me a personal task. If our group will be opened anti-aircraft fire, I must immediately suppress it. I understood everything, Comrade Captain, I replied. ... accompanied by 6 yaks flying over the front line. About 10 or 12 minutes later, I hear the commander's voice. Third, move to the right. We rearrange ourselves on a bearing. And here is our target. We can see half-destroyed station buildings. Long threads of rails shine. We can see echelons. 1, 2, 3, 4. Tanks. On the platforms, tanks, guns. In the wagons, ammunition, manpower. Attention, attack. Captain Krivoshlek commands. And 5 cars following the stormtroopers of the leader rush into a dive. But now there are sparks of fire. Shells are flying towards us. It's the anti-aircraft guns. We quickly go down 450 meters. The leader takes his car out of the dive, we after him. And down came the bombs. 3,500 kilograms. The group makes a second approach. Now the station is on fire. Cisterns are burning, ammunition is bursting. But the enemy anti-aircraft guns continue to fire. Third. That's the commander calling me. Suppress the anti-aircraft gun. And I'm already looking for where it's hiding. And so it is northwest of the station, at the edge of the forest. I turn to the right and immediately rush to the battery. In the sight, the barrels raised to the top, spewing fire. I let off 4 rockets, and 4 blue streams stretched from the airplane. Smoke envelops the position. Gaining altitude. Our group continues to process the target. In the air, ruptures are already less, so my Eris have done their job. But there are still anti-aircraft guns lurking somewhere. I'm looking for them. What are they? Boxes. That's right, tanks. They managed to unload. I'd like to hit them. I've got 4 more rockets and almost full ammunition and shells in reserve. I'm dive bombing. I caught one of the most conspicuous tanks in the group in the sight. I launch Eris, then press the gun and machine guns. Fire, smoke. I take the helm. Ilyushin sharply scoots up the nose. Shakes from overload. Crawls up. I see a jet of fire coming from my left. It's the Oerlikon. I didn't have time to move the car away, as if hail pounded on it. Water splashed in my face. Protecting my eyes, I lowered my goggles. It didn't help. The water, atomizing, splashes and splashes, floods the glasses. I wipe them with my sleeve. I notice on the instrument that the speed is decreasing, and the ground is about 300 meters away. I listen to the heart of the airplane. The engine is running smoothly. Will I make it home or not? I look around. Ours are nowhere to be found, neither attack aircraft nor fighter cover. I felt uneasy. The group had left and Maliuk and I were alone. Meanwhile, the altitude continues to fall, and to the front line must fly for another 6 or 7 minutes. Hold on a little longer, my dear, I mentally appealed to my Ilyusha. But the altimeter already shows 200 meters, 150. I can't make it. The engine overheated. The cockpit smells of carbon monoxide. My eyes are watering. My throat is sore. The height is already 100 meters. There's only one way out to land, immediately land. Is it really captivity? No, not that. If we meet the Nazis, I'll fight to the last man. I'm trying to contact Maliuk on the spoo. But he doesn't answer. The internal connection is damaged. What to do? What if I sit in the field and try to fix the engine? But I can't see anything ahead. The armored glass is splashed with water. I manage to see something through the side cheeks of the lantern. I'm calculating the landing. The airplane is barely holding in the air and is about to snap and fall. By incredible efforts, I level the attack aircraft. I've landed. The machine by inertia ran a few hundred meters, jumped on the plow and stopped not far from the woods. I jumped out of the cabin. There was not a soul around. Maliuk poked his head out from under the turret. He wanted to ask something, but waved his hand. Everything is clear. I hurried to the engine, opened the lower hatch of the armored hood. Hot drops splashed in my face, looking for a hole. Here it is. An armor-piercing shell had penetrated through the 3mm thick hood, and a shrapnel had cut the diorite pipe that led water from the radiator to the engine. In such cases, especially in the situation in which Maliuk and I found ourselves, it is necessary to put a bandage on the damaged tube. That's what Liakovsky taught me. I remembered that there was a first aid kit hanging in the cabin and a rubber gasket behind it. It'll fit. I shouted to Maliuk to remove the gasket and find some longer cable. The gunner did what he needed in no time. Now get to the machine gun. While I'm busy repairing it, keep your eyes open. I broke my fingers till they were bloody, while I took off the clamp. I felt someone watching me. I raised my head. 2 guys came out of the forest and stopped in indecision. Wait, who are they? We are our own, uncle, our own. Hearing a familiar, native speech, I smiled. The guys came closer. Can we help you? Are the Germans far away? There are none here. They have already sat down by the Suzidnim. The boys were already standing next to me. What about you, faggots? The younger one inquired. Yes, we were hit. Now we need water. 4 buckets. Will you bring it? We'll go to the stakes at once. Just hurry up. And the guys ran as fast as they could towards the forest. Oh, Commander, I see dust over the road in the distance. I can already distinguish Germans. On a motorcycle, reported Maliuk. Don't panic, Anton, I answered, and was surprised by my calm tone. Get ready to give them a fight. Let them get closer. Aim better. A minute later, a long machine gun burst rang out. Ready. All 3 of them are lying down, cheerfully reported Maliuk. Well done, Anton. Well done. I rejoiced and calmly continued to bandage the tube, tightening the bandage with a cable. That seems to be all. Here are the kids carrying water. I pour it into the neck. I check the pipe. It's not leaking. Thank you, my darlings. Now run away. There are 2 cars on the same road again. No, an armoured personnel carrier and a covered vehicle, specifies the air gunner. But I'm already in the cockpit. Bullets whizzing over my head. I opened the valve with a jerk. Compressed air rushed into the engine. The propeller swung, began to turn, made a full turn, second, third. The engine roared. I never heard more beautiful music in my life than that. Suddenly a bullet burst into the cabin and pierced the dashboard. We must hurry. Here is already Ilyushin. Carefully moved from the place, went faster, then ran on a small flat field. I hear the tops of bushes rustling under the wings. I took the steering wheel. Here the car came off the ground, once again hit the ground with its wheels and hung down. At this time Maliuk gave 2 long lines on the fascist machines. Gone. Seconds decided our fate, but we managed to win these moments. And again we're in our native element, all around a boundless ocean of sky. But what is it? The engine began to stall. In the cabin again smelled the smell of burning. Just a little more, my dear. There's not much left, but Ilyusha is deaf. The engine sneezed and then stopped. The propeller doesn't turn. The 5.5-ton machine went to the ground. I landed on my belly with the landing gear retracted. The attack aircraft crawled about 50 meters and bumped its nose into the hillside. Maliuk and I jumped out of the car. Alive. Home. The captain ran up to us. Guys, go quickly to the ravine. The Germans often shell this clearing. As soon as we had time to take cover, a mine exploded near our plane. Then several more landed. One of them hit the airplane. It burst into flames. Eh? Ilyusha, you are our dear. I whisper. You helped us out, but you yourself. By evening we reached our regiment by hitchhiking. In life there are events that are imprinted in the memory for many years: the first flight, the first battle, the first order. The atmosphere of elation that we had in our regiment before especially important combat events has remained in my memory. When the regiment was assigned a particularly important task, political workers were always in the lead. Among the pilots you could often see the deputy commander of the regiment on the political part of Major Ivanov, and the secretaries of the party and Komsomol organizations, and propagandist of the regiment, and agitators. Party and Komsomol meetings were held, and the speeches of our soldiers at these meetings sounded oaths. The soldiers promised to be brave and steadfast in battle. Especially exciting was the ritual of seeing off the regiment taking off in full. We went up in the air, and at the strip stood the sacred, blood-stained with the blood of comrades in arms guards banner. Rustling purple silk, it seemed to accept this peculiar parade, admonishing us for exploits. And we, without sparing ourselves, sacredly fulfilled our duty. And when we returned from a mission, we wanted to throw off fatigue, at least for a moment, and then we needed a heartfelt song. A funny joke. And so, after everything that happened on that ill-fated day, when we, with Maliuk, literally miraculously survived, I sit in the evening in the dormitory, reading newspapers. I try to distract myself, but every time my thoughts involuntarily bring me back to the battle that took place a few hours ago. Suddenly the door opened, and on the threshold appeared smiling and excited Maliuk. Comrade Commander. Look at what I have brought. And Maliuk, with a triumphant look, put on the table something oblong, wrapped in a green tablecloth. What is it? I asked in surprise. Look at it. I unfolded the tablecloth and gasped. Bayan! From where? From the club. You said you hadn't held an accordion in your hands for a long time, so I decided to surprise you. They gave me only 1 hour. They say there's a concert today, an amateur talent show. I gave my word to return it by the deadline. I looked at the instrument for a long time, hesitating to take it in my hands. You know, Anton, nothing seems to work. I've forgotten everything my father taught me. It's been 3 years. And you try? Asked Maliuk. Maybe you're embarrassed of me, so I'll come out. Come on, Anton. How could you think such a thing? I took the tool, sat down on a stool, and threw the belt over my right shoulder. Felt the bass keys with the fingers of my left hand. Then played the scales with my right. Again revived such a familiar feeling of buttons of the accordion, and confidence returned to me. Good accordion, I praised. Brand new. A month only, as sent from the division, said Maliuk. I tuned up for a few minutes, then, winking at Maliuk, played Gypsy. My gunner, throwing out his legs funny, walked across the room. His eyes were shining. Great, Commander. Oh, how great! Can you play our Ukrainian songs? Of course. And I played Black Eyebrows, Brown Eyes. Maliuk listened and quietly began to sing along. Time flew by quickly. Suddenly Anton realized. I'm going to be eaten alive by the head of the club. The concert will be ruined. Hurry up and carry it. I help him wrap the accordion with the same green tablecloth. Who's performing? Our regimental, Anton answered. Come. I'll take a seat for you. You won't regret it. And from the threshold he said conspiratorially, There's a Divchina singing. Well, she's an artist. And there's a new, wonderful song. It's called Ogonek. I heard her practicing with an accordion player. Anton was a nice guy. Modest and good-natured, he never boasted, loved and knew his business perfectly. In difficult, dangerous situations of battle, Anton never lost, shot accurately, calculatingly choosing the target, was able to keep the enemy at a respectful distance, not giving him the opportunity to attack. In short, he had a steady hand, a keen eye and a courageous heart. And this is very important in the air. Maliuk was my reliable shield. The small auditorium of the village club was already full, and at the front door crowded many people wishing to get acquainted with the regimental talents. I squeezed into the hall with great difficulty and looked for Maliuk. There he was, standing up, waving at me. Just in time, Comrade Commander. Now the concert will begin, rejoiced Maliuk. The concert was good. First in the hall sounded baritone Sergeant Naumov. Then our guardsmen performed a sketch, dancers demonstrated their art, acrobats delighted the audience. Parody verses on Hitler and his horde aroused general approval. Finally, the announcement was made. The new song Ogoniak will be performed by the non-commissioned officer Ilyushina. The last words of the announcer were overwhelmed by applause. Katya and the accordionist, the 16-year-old son of the regiment Misha Fedin, came on stage. Katya said something to him and timidly, as it seemed to me, looked into the hall. I was suddenly seized with excitement. I must admit that for a moment I was even confused. I never expected to see Katya Ilyushina here on the stage, and feeling anxious for her, I involuntarily lowered my eyes. But then came a voice, strong, clear, soft. There was a girl at the position. She saw the soldier off. In the dark night she said goodbye. On the porch steps. The girl sang freely, easily. And I also felt some kind of upliftment. Warm, beautiful voice filled the hall with festive joy. The song resounded, and the hall seemed to explode. Bravo. Encore. More. Came from everywhere, overlapping the thunder of applause. Katya, excited and happy with her success, ran backstage, but she had to repeat her song. And what did I say, Comrade Commander? Triumphed Maliuk. How she sings. And what soulful words. The concert was over, and I hurried to the exit. Having chosen a convenient place near the club, by which Ilyushina was to pass, I began to wait. I just lit a cigarette and saw Katya walking by, surrounded by numerous fans. I wanted to step towards her, but did not dare, and slowly followed the merry company. Suddenly Katya stopped, said something to her companions and turned to me. At first I was startled by the surprise, but immediately pulled myself together and, daring, said, "If I could get the best flowers now. I'm very happy for you, congratulations." We are standing alone in the middle of the street in the village of Charivno. There's silence all around. The moon smiles in the sky among the festive round dance of stars. Katya stares upward as if counting the stars. Her face seems to be streaming with lively moon silver. Her eyes are shining. "Katyusha, may I walk you to your dormitory?" "No, that's all right. I'll go myself. I'm not afraid." We're walking slowly somewhere. To the dormitory or away from it, it doesn't matter now. The whole world is just the two of us, and the sky above us, and the stars. I listen to my interlocutor, catching every word she says, and it seems to me that I have already known and seen all this before. The Volga steppe breathes with heat. Far away, up to the horizon, the golden spill of the sea of wheat. Villages are green islands in it. The windows in the bus are open, but it doesn't save passengers from stuffiness. The hot heat rushes into the cabin. It was possible to go in the night, it is not so hot. But the girl hurried home to the state farm, to her parents. She hurried to tell them the joy she got in. Her dream would come true, she would become a dentist. Her father and mother were, of course, happy. They were doctors themselves, and her daughter was also following in their footsteps. But the war got in the way. Men went to the front. They were replaced by women and teenagers. One day the director of the state farm called Katya Ilyushina and said, "You are a Komsomol member and you can help us in one important matter. We need to organize a kindergarten. Women complain there is no one to leave the kids. Work until the beginning of the school year, and by then we'll find a replacement for you." Katya agreed. The summer passed by in cares and troubles. From the 1st of October began classes at the Saratov Dental School. Lectures alternated with defense work. And in the short hours of rest, students arranged improvised concerts. Musical by nature, Katya sang, played the guitar, and one more hobby she had: sports. She even took part in all union competitions in cycling. In May 1942, Katya Ilyushina put on a military uniform. The girl was sent to the School of Junior Aviation Specialists. She had a haircut under a boy, was given a uniform and boots. She left so quickly that she did not even have time to say goodbye to her relatives. And study began. Line training, study of regulations, classes on the material part. Soon she passed her exams, and here Katya in the train going to the front. The first baptism of fire the girl took near Kupiansk. At first a growing rumble floated from afar. The train stopped, and the intermittent humming of heavy-laden airplanes became clearly audible. Very close, from the echelon on the neighbouring tracks, began to fire small-caliber anti-aircraft guns. In the night sky, a bright beam of searchlight searched the sky and highlighted in the height of 1, 2nd, 3rd Air Pirates. The girls in the Teplushka quieted down, pressed one against the other, watching with bated breath. In the area of the station, up to which there were 500 meters, glittered sparks and immediately rolled into the darkness of thunder. Machine guns rattled. There was an explosion, followed by a second and a third. The reddish glow of the flame seemed to peep into the Teplushka and immediately disappeared, to be repeated a few seconds later. "Calm down, girls. Steady," came from below, from the canvas, the voice of the head of the train. "The fascists are bombing the station. We have to disperse. But don't panic." In about 10 minutes it became quiet. The heavy rumble drifted away. The anti-aircraft guns quieted down. We heard voices. Into the cars. The train moved quietly, slowly past by the burning buildings of the station, empty platforms and shattered metal skeletons on wheels, then, gaining speed, rushed towards tomorrow. Everything went well, and girls' voices rang in the Teplushka until midnight. They sang to the clatter of the wheels until fatigue took over. At a little light, Katya woke up, opened her eyes, listened. The train slowed down. The buffers rattled. She looked from the second floor in the open hatch of the car, the forest. Quiet noise, breathing pine infusion. "Come out to line up, girls. Here we are." The semi-truck went deep into the forest. Then it ran along a dusty country road, winding between the uncultivated bread, crumpled by tank tracks and stinking of garbage. They stopped at a crossroads. Katya looked back and saw a flat field, and on its far edge, under the colour of young clover, several planes. An airfield. "So, the replenishment has arrived in our regiment," smiled a very young senior lieutenant. "Or rather, not replenishment, but replacement," he clarified. "Men at arms are giving way to you. Let's see what you are capable of, let's see." He lined up the girls, told them where they had arrived and what they would be doing. He approached Katya, talked to her, told her to get out of the line. "Ekaterina Ilyushina will be your squad leader." "Understood." ... And the days went by. Under the guidance of a senior lieutenant, girls began to study anew the armament of the attack aircraft directly on the plane. But it did not last long. The enemy pressed our troops, and the regiment began to withdraw to the east. The flight crew had wings, and therefore redeployment was not a problem for them. The technical staff and auxiliary services were sent to the new place by automobiles or by railroad. They were accompanied by lightly wounded aviators who were treated at the unit, as well as horseless pilots and air gunners who were left without airplanes. As a rule, there were only two reasons: either the airplane was shot down and the crew managed to escape, or the airplane was damaged in battle and needed serious repairs. The wounded needed medical attention en route. Military Dr. Dmitriev took a closer look at Katya. He learned from someone that she was born in a family of doctors, knows how to make prescriptions, knows how to make bandages. She was entrusted by him to look after the wounded. So Katya became a nurse. She travelled around the train, bandaged the wounded, handed out powders and pills. The train travelled for a long time to the east. It stopped as if to catch its breath, then started up again, and the wheels clattered, and white braids of locomotive smoke floated away into the steppe, clung to the treetops. It was not difficult to realize that the train was heading for Stalingrad. The train stopped in Verkhnaya Akhtuba. Here we unloaded. The girls were distributed among the squadrons. Katya was assigned to the third. Checked again, as she knows the armament of the attack aircraft, whether she knows how to equip cannons and machine guns. But the most severe test was a cruel 40-degree frost. Needles stabbed into the cheeks, cold metal burned fingers, and there were tears in my eyes. No, not from the wind, from grief. You raise your head, look into the distance, black smoke rises into the sky, Stalingrad is burning. And as if there was no more frost, and stiffened fingers went away, hurry to load the attack aircraft with ammunition. Listening to Katya, I think about the complex interweaving of human destinies, about the paths and roads that led us to this meeting, to this night sky, on which I know there are our two stars, two destinies that can become one. Early in the morning I'm at the airfield again. I habitually join the rhythm of combat life, and it's as if neither yesterday's concert nor the quiet starry sky had happened. Ilyushin is already waiting for me. Motovilov, Cherkova and Baranov did everything, preparing the attack aircraft for a combat flight. I thank these wonderful people, honest, dedicated, excellent knowledge of aviation technology. It usually happens like this. No sooner had we pulled into the parking lot, as Grisha Motovilov and Sasha Cherkova are here. I'm still in the cockpit, and they are already in one voice. Well, Commander? The engine worked well, guns and machine guns without fail. Their faces light up a smile. Motovilov hurries to inspect the engine. He does it concentrated and, like a doctor of the patient, carefully groping whether it is not overheated, whether there are no leaks of oil, fuel. And Sasha Cherkova, redhead blonde, so jokingly nicknamed her in the squadron, looks into the open hatches of ammunition boxes and triumphantly exclaims, "This one's empty, Commander. This one's empty too. Empty, Sasha. Empty." I answered and smiled. "You have golden hands, Sashok. You're a good girl, honestly." How important it is when Ilyushin guns and machine guns, loaded on the ground, talk in battle without stuttering. I often remembered Bikbilatov in this connection. Once he returned to the airfield, and the ammunition was unspent, and Bik was angry. He thought that he had not fully completed the combat mission. I could have killed more than one more Nazi, and here the weapon failed. He lamented. I was not the only one who remembered Bikbilatov. Alexander Zaplavsky was also very worried about the death of his friend. He became taciturn and withdrawn. But time took its toll, and soon Sasha regained his former form. Every now and then he would insert a sharp word, throw a joke that would make people around him laugh. "Why did you let go of the moustache?" Sasha Cherkova once inquired. "You are still very young." Zaplavsky importantly pouted, twisted his moustache and, without smiling, replied, "And I use them to drive away messers and Fokas. They think I'm a Cossack, and our Don and Cuban Cossacks have been remembered by the Germans since the First World War." Zaplavsky's prowess, resourcefulness and desperate courage could not be denied. Once Alexander forced the regiment command to worry a lot. Then he was assigned to fly Al-2 after major repairs. A new engine was installed on the attack aircraft, and it was necessary to test the machine in different modes. Zaplavsky skillfully took off, and, without gaining altitude, disappeared from sight. They waited for him. No. We were worried. It means that something happened. Either the engine gave up, or the control was faulty. We assumed the best thing that could happen, forced landing. How did you check the readiness? What could have happened? Nervous Major Lyakovsky, seeking from Klubov an answer that would bring some certainty to the situation. No less concerned than the commander and the senior engineer of the regiment, although personally checked the machine before giving permission to fly it. He is probably in Voroshilovgrad by now, someone joked. Lyakovsky looked angrily at the joker and suddenly remembered how on the third day Zaplavsky had asked him for permission to fly to Voroshilovgrad to visit his parents. Then the commander, seized by the turnover, busy with regimental affairs, said to Zaplavsky, "I understand you, but I cannot. Now every pilot is on the account, and you see what kind of combat tension these days." Now, Lyakovsky had no doubts Zaplavsky was in Voroshilovgrad, and the major hurried to the telephone to report to the commander. "Let's wait until evening," said Colonel Prutkov. "If he doesn't arrive, we'll report higher up." At 18 o'clock Zaplavsky arrived, landed safely and went to Captain Klubov. "Comrade Guards Captain, mission accomplished. The engine instruments and systems are working well. In the air for 45 minutes, made 2 landings," he reported. Alexander's eyes glistened with joy. He was excited and excited. It turned out that he, having taken to the sky, took a course to his native city Voroshilovgrad. He landed at the airfield Ostraya Mogila, which was very familiar to him. He had started flying here. He rushed home luckily. His parents lived not far from the airfield. At home he found only his father. They hugged each other and kissed. Together they went to the airfield. There they said goodbye. His father never saw his son again. Alexander Zaplavsky died soon after. Yes, it is difficult to lose friends. It is hard to realize that your comrade will never come back. But, having passed away, our comrades in arms continued to live in our hearts and therefore remained in the ranks. We fought for ourselves and for them together with us. They defeated the enemy, drove him out of our native land, native sky. We swore to avenge the dead. The agenda of one Komsomol meeting read to avenge the Hitlerite invaders for the heroic death of the pupils of the Lenin Komsomol Igor Kalatin, and Alexander Zaplavsky. At the meeting, Komsomol members told about their fallen comrades in arms, their feats, reported the details of the last battle. At such meetings, the best of the best received a recommendation to the Party of Communists. Party and Komsomol meetings were a kind of school of combat experience. Often at them, the most distinguished in battles pilots, as if reporting to their comrades, shared their combat skills, taught the art of winning. Speakers were technicians, mechanics, motorists. Stories of former soldiers enriched the newcomers with knowledge, ignited their courage, bravery, the desire to imitate the heroes. These meetings were usually operational, speeches passionate, few words, decisions specific, mobilizing. The party organization of our regiment used all the variety of forms of work for the education of brave and skillful air fighters. Commanders and political workers paid much attention to the propaganda of heroic deeds of fellow soldiers. In newspapers, combat leaflets and leaflets reported on the exploits of aviators who distinguished themselves in battle. Agitators fervently told about them. Young people learned from experienced aviators the art of victory. For the 3rd time during the day I drove into the parking lot. I got out of the cabin, took off my helmet. Gymnast stuck a stick to my body. I unbuttoned the collar, greedily inhaled a full chest of refreshing autumn air. Led by the commander, Captain Krivoshlik, we 12 air fighters go to the control to report to Major Lyakovsky on the fulfillment of the combat mission. On the way we clarify the results of the assault. Each tries to inform the commander, notice details. Next to Lyakovsky operational staff. In combat order circle 6 rounds, stormed the retreating westward motorized column of the enemy, reports Guards Captain Krivoshlik. The result destroyed 8 vehicles, killed about 50 enemy soldiers and officers. 2 explosions were noted. The enemy anti-aircraft fire was weak. No losses. Very good, Comrade Major. Answer Lyakovsky alerted us. Did the commander misspoke, calling Krivoshlik Major? But no. I congratulate you on the awarding of the next military rank of Major, solemnly pronounces Lyakovsky. And you, Comrade Ned Balo, he turns to me, with the military rank of Lieutenant. The commander shook hands firmly with Krivoshlik, then with me and handed us new officers' epaulettes and insignia. First Krivoshlik, followed by me, coined the phrase, which is necessary in such cases. I served the Soviet Union. We left the commander in high spirits. As soon as we went out of the door, and it began. Comrades are congratulating each other, pilots, staff workers are also hurrying to shake hands and say a kind word. At the noise, the door of the control room opened. On the threshold, Katya. She smiles discreetly. She knows I guessed. Her eyes light up, shining. She heartily congratulates us. You will now command the link. The regiment commander approved your candidacy, Krivoshlik informed me. I didn't even find something to answer the commander at once. I'm silent, thinking over the answer. Didn't expect it. Confused? Don't be shy, and everything will be fine. The main thing you have, the rest will come with it. Soothed Krivoshlik. That's how it is sometimes, I thought. In one day, 2 significant events. It is flattering, of course, that you are promoted to a new position. But something inside is alarming. What a responsibility. 4 airplanes, 4 crews, more than 20 subordinates. From that day on I had new worries, new troubles, new difficulties. From now on I will be asked for 4 airplanes, for their combat readiness, for the training of flight personnel, for the work of aviation specialists of the whole unit. Now, going on a combat mission, I had to take into account that each flight involves a mortal risk not only for me, had to save their people, their planes. I had to drive my subordinates competently, skillfully, thoroughly know the tactics of the enemy, and be a model for the others. Air and time was rushing by on invisible wings. Days ran away, but the living thread of memory kept leading me to that unforgettable event, which in fact began my front biography. The regiment was lined up right on the airfield. The faces of the aviators are solemnly stern. Everyone realizes that this is not a review of formation, not preparation for a parade, but something immeasurably more. Music is sounding. The hot purple of the Guards' banner is blowing in the wind. Such a thing is never forgotten. The Molochnaya River is a new frontier on our front roads. Hitler's generals took great care that the fortifications on the right bank of the river were impregnable for the Soviet troops. But just as on the Maas River, the enemy failed to hold back the onslaught of the advancing avalanche. Neither the fortifications, nor the reserves pulled up in advance, nor the cream of Hitler's aviation, the kings of the air, as they were long called in Germany, gathered in such squadrons as you date, as Peak, Green Heart helped. The Nazi aces drew all sorts of symbols on their airplanes. It was done not only to intimidate our pilots, rather out of superstition, but the guardian angel. In the form of a black cat or in the form of a horseshoe, lightning black ace did not save the fascist from a Soviet pilot's turn or our anti-aircraft gun shell. So a new operation began. And again the earth is burning in fire, and again the sky is crowded with airplanes, and again from morning till evening battles, and flight follows flight after flight. Guardsmen of the 75th Air Assault Regiment suppress enemy fire points, destroy his equipment and soldiers in trenches and trenches and trenches on the right bank of the Molochnaya River. We make powerful strikes on railway stations, keep under control the communications of Hitler's troops, storm the crossings, disorganize the supply system of the troops. On one of such days the regiment was shocked by the news our favorite, fearless commissar hero of the Soviet Union, Dmitry Prudnikov, died. We experienced the loss hard. We beat the enemy even harder, not knowing fear, not sparing ourselves. Meteorological conditions are difficult. Low cloud cover at times drops below 100 meters. It is very difficult to find the target. You fly and all your attention, straining your eyesight, looking for the enemy, and though with great difficulty, but you find it. In the afternoon the weather improved. We are at the control center, waiting. Finally the regiment commander gives an order. The 3rd Squadron to destroy the Dnieper crossing. Oh, it's already work. The name of the river alone is worth it. It seems that our fascists were squeezed quite a bit. To deprive them of the crossing means not only to deprive them of supply, but also to cut off ways to retreat, to bring panic into the enemy camp, to demoralize him. We're off. We are covered by a squad of 4 yaks. We approach the target 6, rearrange in the right bearing. A blue ribbon shone ahead. Dnieper. My heart beat fast. Here it is, the ancient Slavutich. Right on the course a thin dark grey strip, as if pulling the Dnieper banks it's a crossing. The distance is rapidly decreasing. Here we are already met by enemy anti-aircraft guns here, and their dark caps of bursts are blowing up. Cautions, attack. I hear the voice of our commander, and immediately the whole 6 rushes into a dive. The bombs are dropped. We turn to the left. I can see white splashes flying up on both sides of that narrow strip. That's the bombs exploding in the water. But the crossing is intact. Krivoshlik is leading the group on the second run. Commander, on the right Lopotniki, warns me Malyuk. I look to the right U-87 dive bombers, stretched out in a chain, go in the keel. They're in a hurry to bomb our troops. I think, what if we break up their formation? I had a daring thought. Caution 03, me 04. Permission to attack the Junkers? I'm asking the leader. Permission to attack the Junkers in pairs. Krivoshlik answers. I approach together with the wingman to Lopotniki. I decide to attack first of all the flagship. A few seconds, and it's already in my sights. I give a long line of guns and machine guns. Leading Junkers bites nose, and, falling over the left wing, falls. The calculation was correct. As soon as the flagship disappeared, the formation immediately fell apart. At the same moment I heard a machine gun burst behind me. That's Malyuk firing and commenting. It's for you, Satan. One more ready, Commander. Well done. I shout to Malyuk. Congratulations. It's your third, I think. Instead of an answer, a new warning. Be careful, Commander, there are messes. So the Junkers were under cover. Where are the fighters? I looked around, I don't see them. And 4 of our attack aircraft are already coming out of the attack. The dark stripe on the blue background disappears. It already looks different, only dashes are visible on both banks, and between them it's as if someone has drawn a chalk. This white trace storms the water, rushed into the breach, boiling, foaming. Great. It means that the bomb hit exactly, and there is no more crossing. I hurry to join the group. And then I notice that 2 Messerschmitts are coming at our commander. Krivoshlik is in danger. I squeeze out of the Ilyushin all that it is capable of. I go to approach the enemy to thwart his attack. I kind of merged with the airplane. It seems to understand me. Steeply nose up, goes up. In the sight red bark Messer. I'm taking preemptive. I give long lines from cannons and machine guns. Messer strangely swings from side to side, then tilted and smoking, goes spiralling to the ground. The second Messer preferred to retreat. I was jubilant. It was a joke to shoot down a fighter on a ground attack aircraft. 2 more Messers were shot down by our yaks. So the fascists no longer have the crossing today. They will not count 2 U-87s and 3 Messers. We are returning to our airfield. I'm landing. I'm pulling into the parking lot. I just jumped from the wing to the ground, and I see Major Krivoshlik coming. He silently, fatherly hugged me, pressed me against him. You helped me out today. I didn't see the Messers, and the gunner didn't see them in time, and they came in from the tail. Thank you, Anatoly. No way, Comrade Major. I was doing my duty. I acted according to the regulations. That's right, according to the regulations. But not everyone would have acted so decisively and bravely, he concluded. At the debriefing, the regiment commander gave us high praise, especially noted our crew for this day. Our attack aircraft destroyed 3 enemy aircraft. Malyuk Shon, the commander, praised him for courage and accurate fire. After dismantling, begin to disperse, but then comes to me Deputy Commander Major Ivanov, congratulates me on the success, shakes hands firmly, asks to come to him. Here's what I would like to talk to you about, Anatoly Konstantinovich, Ivanov began, when I came to him. What do you think about joining the party? I knew our deputy polite well. He knew how to look into a man's soul, was a good psychologist and studied each soldier. I also knew that Major Ivanov likes to talk frankly. "I thought so, Comrade Major," I answer, and more than once. "But I think that I'm not ripe to carry a party card. I'm young, and I don't have many combat victories to my credit." "It's not a matter of age, Anatoly Konstantinovich, and in battles you have already shown yourself well," Ivanov encouraged me. I was walking from the Deputy Chief of Defence. In high spirits, Major Ivanov said that he believed in me, wished me new combat successes. And again the day, and again combat sorties followed one after another. 3 sorties went well. In the 4th one, my Ilyushin was hit by an enemy anti-aircraft gun. But I made it home, sat down. Before I could turn off the engine, as Sasha Cherkova jumped up on the wing, she shouted at me, "Hurry up, Commander." I opened the lantern. Sasha smiled and handed me the cherished triangle. You can imagine my condition the first letter. For all the time I was at the front, I had not received a single message from anyone. And here, I'm trying to make out the postmarks. I can't do anything. Either my hand trembles from excitement, or my eyes have suddenly lost their sharpness. I unwrap the simple envelope and immediately recognize my father's handwriting. Of course it was his hand, his small purple letters. Holding my breath, I quickly ran my eyes over the text. "Is everyone alive and well?" "How's mother, sister?" I breathed a sigh of relief. Alive. But what my father reported, albeit sparingly, fragmentarily, could not but disturb my soul. My parents tried to evacuate the whole family, but near Voroshilovgrad, Hitlerites cut off the way to the east. They decided to return to Izium. We were exhausted, starved, suffered misfortunes until we got home. And then we had a lot of trouble from the occupants. The whole squadron read the letter. Then I reread it again and again, and my thoughts carried me back to my native town, to the shore of the Donets. ... Now, my son, all the horrors are behind us. Our life is slowly getting better, although we have to start everything over again, my father wrote. And to you, our mothers, and our instruction: beat the enemy harder, chase the enemy from our land. Do you hear, son? And I whispered, "I hear you, father. I hear you." And the fire of hatred for the enemy was burning in my heart. ... The victory over the fascists at the eastern gate of the Crimea was not easy for us. The fascists stubbornly resisted, and we had to continuously storm the front line to help ground troops to break through the German defense. From morning till evening, airplanes were buzzing over the battlefield. From morning till evening, we do not give the enemy peace. Just returned from a combat mission, and the attack aircraft is being prepared for a new flight. The group will be led by the deputy commander of the regiment, Guards Captain Filimonov. I'm on his right wing to wing. There was only a minute left to fly to the target. The appearance of Red Star aircraft in this area, a complete surprise for the enemy anti-aircraft gunners, and they began to fire at us with a delay. But the fire does not harm us. The shells burst above, and we are already on the attack. The ground is getting closer and closer, though the enemy camouflaged his guns, but we still managed to see the artillery positions of the Nazis. Following the leader, I pressed the button of the bomb thrower and some of the bombs flew down. Alarcon trails are rushing towards us. Fireballs flicker left and right, and suddenly flashes shone at the left wing of my Ilyushin. The airplane shuddered. A few seconds later, through the steady hum of the engine, I heard a close explosion. The attack plane rocked again. There was another hole in the left wing now from an anti-aircraft shell. Ilyushin at first lowered the nose, then piled on the damaged wing. It became very difficult to control the airplane. And I, fully occupied with it, forgot to press the bomb drop button again. I tried to level the car. I couldn't. Some unknown force interfered. And the car is sliding inexorably downward. With all my might, both hands pull the control stick, give it to the right, and finally take the plane out of the roll. But time is already lost. Now I have broken away from the group and go much lower than it. However, my ordeal did not end there. A new shock shook the machine. Somewhere under the airplane exploded anti-aircraft shell. The engine suddenly choked, coughed, and then stopped. It became hot, There was vapor on my forehead. This has never happened to me before. The car was stubbornly losing altitude. 2 blades of the stopped propeller stick out like horns in front of my eyes. I have 2 choices, either to use the parachute and leave the airplane or to try to land. But I'm not alone in the rear cockpit. Maliuk. I'm responsible for him. I look around. No smoke. So we're not on fire. I decide to land. The territory under us is our own. That's already good. But I'm worried there are still unspent bombs in the center plane. I'll land anyway. I decided without hesitation. I'm looking for a place to land. Here and there we see our tanks and vehicles, artillery positions, trenches. Here on the left, it seems, a flat, not torn-up field. But in front of it a ravine, and the height at which we are flying, no more than 100 meters. Will I overextend? With this angle of planning, we could go straight into the ravine. And a rough landing is dangerous now. There are bombs in the left compartment. If anything, we'll surely explode. At this thought, goosebumps ran down my back. It is necessary to increase speed. That is the salvation now. How to do it if the engine does not work? What if? I give the wheel away from me. The car is descending rapidly. The ravine seems to have widened. Now I pull the steering wheel sharply towards myself. The airplane is nose down. Landing gear, and immediately push the release crane forward. The speed dropped. For a moment the airplane seemed to hover, and again it was pulled down, and again with a left roll. Well, dear, a little more. But the heavy and even damaged machine does not intend to reckon with my wishes. It is falling, and I have no strength to hold it. A sharp jolt, the plane left wheel hit, jumped, ran a few more meters, and again hit the ground hard. An explosion sounded under the machine. At that moment, Ilyusha turned to the left. The fuselage ploughed the ground. Dust enveloped us. Quiet! I involuntarily pressed myself against the left side of the cabin. My temples are pounding. I count 1, 2, 3, 4. It's the end. I don't want to die so stupidly. There's a ringing silence in my ears. Only something crackles under us. Quickly out of the cabin. I shout to Maliuk. Having opened the lantern, I instantly jump to the ground, getting rid of the parachute. But why is Maliuk slow? What's wrong with him? I'm coming back. I try to open the lantern. In vain. Close your eyes. I shout to Anton and hit the plexiglass with my boot. Maliuk squeezes through the hole. I help him out. Now faster away from the plane. As soon as we had time to run aside and throw ourselves on the ground, as the car was engulfed in flames and the explosion rumbled. Too bad for us, Ilyushin, too bad. More than 30 combat sorties we made with Maliuk on this machine, and now we had to say goodbye to our faithful battle friend. Black smoke is already billowing above it, crackles eaten by fire stuffing, tearing shells and ammunition. Farewell, our winged friend. In the meantime, there is a growing murmur in the sky. I raise my eyes. It is over us, a group of Ilov, accompanied by fighters. It's our foursome returning from the mission. The leader probably sees our burning airplane and thinks that we are dead. Well, namesake. I turn to Maliuk. There's nothing more to do here. It's time to go on our way. And we, having thrown our parachutes behind our backs, walked to the northeast to our airfield. The sun, also tired for the day, was slipping towards sunset. The shadows had noticeably lengthened. We walk, or rather, ramble along the road and meet infantrymen, tankers, artillerymen. In the eyes of each of them we read a mute reproach. They are pilots too. They go on foot, and even to the east. We've had it. I was ashamed in front of them. Dusk had already descended on the ground. We decided to spend the night in the nearest settlement, and in the morning again on the road. We walk in silence. The cats are scratching at my soul. And then I thought about Katusha. Now she probably already knows that the attack aircraft with flight number 38 did not return from the combat mission. Filimonov will say that he himself saw the airplane burning on the ground. It would be better to keep silent. After all, it will hurt her. And how will be worried Motovilov, Chekova, Baranov. Oh, how could something like this happen? To dispel, to drive away bitterness, I decided to think now only about Katya. By that time we had established a very good relationship. I was easy and fun with her. When I met Katusha the other day, I plucked up courage and asked her, "How do you feel about me?" She laughed. "I'm good." And in her eyes shone a sly light. Then Katya thought for a moment, hesitated a little and said, "I see in you a true comrade, a faithful friend. I like your sincerity, friendliness, purity. With you I can share my thoughts, tell about my sorrows and joys. My dear, dear Katyusha, I was not mistaken in you. I realized with my heart what a happiness it is that I met you." So I thought, walking with Maliuk along the road, barely greying in the darkness. Soon it led us to a small village. The windows were dark. Somewhere at the other end a dog barked muffledly. It seemed that the people in the houses were not asleep, but lurked, anxiously looking out of the windows into the darkness of the night, and asking themselves the same question, what new trials awaited them tomorrow. We knocked at one of the nearest houses. The door opened, and a woman with a shawl on her head appeared in the dark doorway. "Good evening, my hostess. Can't we spend the night at your place?" "Come into the house, come in," said the woman cordially. The stove was heating in the hut, and in the glow of the fire we saw 3 little children sitting on a bench in the corner, looking at us anxiously. I turned to the landlady. "Shall we go to one of the neighbours, so as not to embarrass you?" "There's no need for embarrassment. We're all having a good time. You boys, get ready and sit down to the table. We're going to have an evening." The hostess put a ladle of milk and 2 cups on the table and brought bread. The children became bolder, sat closer to us, and began to ask us about airplanes. "Uncle." The youngest asked me, "Won't the Nymphs come here any more?" "No, they won't." "Never," I answered. The woman stood by the stove and wiped her tears, and there was no need to ask her about the reasons for her hidden pain. For me, she was now the embodiment of all our women mothers and sisters who had taken on their shoulders the heavy burden of war. While we were satisfying our hunger, while we were talking to the children, the landlady brought straw, covered it with a roe, and put 2 colourful pillows. We slept the sound sleep of tired travellers, and at daylight we set out again. The hostess gave us a cup of milk and a piece of rye bread. Maliuk began to refuse. He said that we would soon be there and have breakfast there. We did not want, could not take away the last piece from the children. But the hostess insisted, and we gave in this kind. Sympathetic, much-suffered woman thanked in our face the whole army for her supreme feat. Having seen us off to the outskirts, she told us how to go on, wished us a happy journey and happiness. By evening we were at home, at our native airfield. As soon as we saw our airplanes from afar, we immediately felt our strength coming. Not far from the dugout, where the regiment headquarters was located, we stopped. "You, Anton, go to rest, and I to the regimental for a report." "I'm going, and I'm looking at the parking lot. Quiet. The planes are scattered. But one place is empty. Our Alyoshin was supposed to be there. Now it's gone." And at once my heart was squeezed. Near the dugout I saw Nikolai Tarakhanov. He was sitting on a log and chiseling something. "Hello, Nikolai." I broke the silence. Tarakhanov jumped up, his eyes widened with surprise. "Tolia, friend. Alive. And we buried you yesterday. Filimonov came back from his mission and said that your airplane had fallen here." Nikolai quickly opened his tablet and showed on the map the place already marked with a red cross. What a joy. "Your gunner is back too. He's back. Well done. You can say you've come back from the dead. Tell me, how did you escape?" I briefly recounted the events. I suddenly remembered for some reason how Tarakhanov crashed the plane on takeoff. He atoned for his guilt with 30 combat sorties he went to photograph the results of the squadron's assaults. This is a very responsible and dangerous business, but Nicholas, all 30 sorties were successful. Now all the old things are behind us. Nikolai among the best of our pilots. On his chest shines the gold star of the hero of the Soviet Union. Excuse me, Nikolai, I have to report to the regiment commander. I hurried. Yes, of course. He was very upset when he heard from Filimonov about you. I carefully descended the steps into the dugout. Should I go past the control room? No. I open the door and see the captain in his familiar seat. So Katya's not on duty today. I quickly close the door and knock on the commander's door. Major Lykovsky rushed to meet me. Alive. Well done, he exclaimed. And Malyuk? Also. Lykovsky shakes my hand firmly with both hands. He smiles. Major Ivanov, the deputy major, is approaching. He's very happy too. The commander is excited he remembered yesterday evening, when he semi-officially informed the personnel that Malyuk and I were killed. Now he was genuinely happy about the mistake. Well, tell us, and me and the deputy polite will listen. I told everything to the smallest detail. Well done. That's the guard's way. Lykovsky couldn't resist when he heard how they had to pull Malyuk out of the cockpit. Don't worry, we'll give you a new airplane. The main thing is that you survived. That's the most important thing. Turned to Ivanov and continued twice well done, honestly. After all, for the second time resurrected. ... Tired but satisfied, I walked from the commander to our officers' dormitory. Darkness all around. And it was good I did not want to retell the story of my second resurrection from the dead. For that reason I decided not to hurry to dinner. I bypassed the canteen. Suddenly a figure rushed towards me out of the darkness. I felt someone pressed against my chest, shuddering. Katusha. She is silent. Then through her tears she slowly says, I was told yesterday that you died. And just now Malyuk came running to me and said. And then Malyuk had time. I laughed. How much kindness, humanity, warmth there is in this man. Well, calm down, Katusha, nothing has happened to me. And nothing will happen to me. We stood under the starry sky again, and nobody and nothing prevented us from dreaming and thinking about the future, which seemed fantastically happy to us. I was descending the steps to the headquarters dugout when I was called by the commissar. Here's what, Comrade Ned Balo, began Krivoshlek without any introduction. My proposal was supported by the regiment commander. From now on you are my deputy. The order has already been signed, and I am pleased to congratulate you on your new appointment. I wish you success. The news stunned me. What a coincidence today I turned exactly 20 years old. And the commander continued. I'll tell you a secret. The regiment commander decided to prepare a surprise for you on this very day. It's your birthday today, isn't it? Congratulations. And tomorrow another one awaits you. Government awards will be presented. So get ready yourself. Thank you, Comrade Major, for the honor and warm words. I will try to justify my trust. I was heartily grateful to my commanders, comrades, all our glorious Guards family for everything they had done for me. Not even a year passed. As a private pilot, I came to this regiment rich in traditions. Here I learned the art of combat. Here I learned the science of victory. And if now I was appointed deputy commander, it means that I was recognized by the veterans. By the same order, Senior Lieutenant Leonid Beda was appointed commander of the 2nd Squadron. I knew him as an experienced pilot. He was not only a master of irresistible assault strikes, but also a great organizer. Leonid could learn a lot, and I tried to adopt his ability to instantly navigate in the situation, learned strict compliance with flight laws, calculation, faith in their strength, and readiness at any moment to take a justified risk. Having made a decision, Leonid never retreated from it, did not change his intention. It was easy to fly with him, and we willingly went with him on combat missions. It was 1944. Our troops were steadily moving westward, liberating more and more settlements of Ukraine. The battles had already unfolded on the outskirts of Kherson and Kharkovka. Meanwhile, Hitler's command, accumulating forces on the Nikopol bridgehead in the bend of the Dnieper, was going to strike a blow to the advancing Soviet divisions and through the resulting corridor to withdraw the parts blocked in the Crimea. The line of contact at the Nikopol bridgehead stabilized. The red line on our flight maps was like a taut bowstring. On the last day of January, air reconnaissance detected west of Nikopol, near the station Chertomlik, large accumulation of enemy military equipment. At 11 o'clock was gathered flying staff of the 3rd Squadron. Guards Major Krivoshlik familiarized us with the situation and explained the task. And now the 6 are in the air, the sky covered with a solid cloud cover. Now and then I lose sight of the horizon, leaden haze every time covers it. At the 3rd minute of flight I hear the voice of Major Krivoshlik. In an open text he transmits. Ned Balo, lead the group to the target. I'm coming back, the equipment is defective. I can see how the leading plane left turn ducked under the group and left. The responsibility for the group, for the fulfillment of the combat mission, now fell on me, and I first experienced the feelings of the leading group. Carefully check the map with the terrain. The weather is disgusting. In addition, we still go without cover. Attention, caution at the highest limit at any moment may appear, messers. We are already over the area occupied by the enemy, but the ground is not visible everywhere you look. A grey veil. Anti-aircraft guns are beating. Not on target, of course, on sound. The group goes in strict combat order. We are approaching the target area. In the breaks in the clouds noticed a thin thread of railroad. I bind to it. This landmark will help quickly and accurately find the target, and I lead the group along the railroad. The target is very close. The cars are flashing. There's only 2. Have the trains already left? Where are the enemy vehicles? The gullies adjacent to the Bazavluk River are marked on the map. I'm turning the group to the left. And finally I found the target. Ravines and gullies are literally full of equipment and soldiers. With the first approach on command we drop bombs. We turn around for the second attack. We can see how tanks and vehicles are burning, how mad horses are running, how ammunition is bursting. One more approach and new explosions below, new pockets of fire. Now each pilot chooses a target and fires on it from cannons and machine guns. The target is covered. Mission accomplished. I gather the group and go on a reverse course. Visibility is still poor. It's raining mixed with wet snow. Where are we? It's impossible to determine. But judging by the time, we're already under our own. Our nerves are strained to the limit. The clouds have completely pinned us down. We fly at an altitude of up to 100 meters. Fuel is running out. We can hold on for another 15 minutes, no more. We must do something. To the left in the gap I notice some contours, pipes. A city. What city? I look at the map. It's Melitopol. There is a base airfield there. I turn the group around, disband the wingmen over the airfield, order everyone to land from the get-go, and I'm the first to land. A landing sign T is laid out of white cloths away from the concrete runway. So, landing on the ground. I'm descending, leveling the plane. Barely the wheels touched the surface of the alien airfield, the car brakes, about to scapitize. I can't stop it. What's the matter? Finally, the attack aircraft stops. I steer off to the side. The engine is roaring, the speed is almost maximum, and the airplane is barely moving. I looked back. There are deep furrows. I radioed back. The ground is viscous. The crews take into account my warning and land safely. To us rushes Emka. Stopped. The captain approaches. Where are you coming from and where are you going? We landed at your place because of bad weather, and we need to refuel. I'm an officer of the base, the captain introduced himself. I am glad to help you, but we do not have enough fuel of the brand you need, only one gas station. The second one should come by evening. Besides, it is impossible to drive up to the airplanes. What if we pull the cars with a tractor? Our tractor is ruined. The only way out is to drive to the concrete. I ask you to organize the delivery of gasoline and air as soon as possible. I ask the captain. There is no air, the compressor station is not working. I'll send a gasoline refueler right away. We steer the sludge to the concrete strip. A gasoline refueler came. The tank on it is small. But thanks for that. I decided to distribute the fuel depending on the remaining gasoline in the tanks, but so that the wingmen had a little more of it than the leading ones. Anxiety doesn't leave me we have enough fuel to fly in a straight line. What if there is bad weather and our airfield is closed? We have nothing to return with, and how can we take off from such ground? I asked the officer about the concrete. The day before yesterday, the Nazis bombed us. The craters are being filled in, but the work is not finished yet, he explains. We have to do something. I examined the runway, chose the area where I could pass between the unfortunate funnels, and gave the order to the pilots. In 20 minutes we take off. Everyone lay out a route. The first to start are Kaktin. Behind him Sachivko, Tolmachov Karpiv. I'm the last to take off. Be attentive. See the 2 milestones by the funnels. Between them the landing gear passes freely. A deviation of a meter or two will lead to an accident. Do not retract the landing gear in the air with the wheels out. We're going to our airfield. To the planes. I give the command for takeoff to Oktin. The engine roared, and the attack aircraft rolled down the runway. With every second the speed of the run-up is increasing. Already the tail is up. Funnels closer, closer. I missed it, I sighed. Stormtroopers, one after another, run along the concrete, skillfully overcome the dangerous area and take off. I'm going to take off too. The course on our airfield. And the weather does not improve at all. A thick haze covers the ground. Heavy clouds float low over it. 20th minute of flight. The airfield must be below us. But how to clarify it? We cannot bypass the clouds, too little fuel in reserve. And suddenly, as if by order, the clouds parted, and in the window I saw the ground. Under the wings was my native airfield. I recognized the strip, parking lots, headquarters, dugout, Caponias. Cautions, follow me. From the start to land. Pay attention. ... SO, we're home. I had no time to inform the mechanic about the work of the material part in the air. A car arrived. Lyarkovsky, Krivoshlik and Captain Klubov jumped out of it. With the combat task you have coped perfectly, said the commander. We were already worried. Well, you're just a Suvorovets. In such weather to find the target. Congratulations on your first successful group leadership. How long you've been flying? Quietly said Katusha, when I came to the control room. My eyes were tired of looking at the sky. How long you haven't come back? I took her warm hand and pressed it to my chest. How good it is when there is a person who is waiting for you. All the experiences of the day immediately faded into the background. The fatigue disappeared. I saw only clear girl's eyes and felt at my heart trembling warmth of a small hand. And in the evening we again walked for a long time, dreaming, not noticing how time was rushing by. It was long ago time to rest, but how I did not want to part with Katusha. And suddenly, as if from under the ground, a figure grew near. Are you still awake, my daughter? I recognized Captain Klubov's voice. Katya answered hastily. I'm coming, father, I'm coming. And squeezing my fingers, she rushed away. I thought, Ned Balo, that after such a hard day you were already dreaming for the 7th time. We walked side by side. I didn't say a word. We stopped at the door of the dormitory to say good night to each other. Tell you what, Ned Balo, don't insult my daughter, otherwise you'll have to deal with me, said Klubov with contrived severity. How can you offend her? I replied. Katya and I are just good friends. The one who offends her, I myself. All right, he interrupted me. I'm not against your friendship. I'm just in favor of real friendship. Do you understand? Now let's get some rest. Good night. And the engineer gave me his hand. ... My comrades were already asleep, and I carefully tiptoed to my bed. I quietly undressed and lay down, and only now I felt that I was tired. I closed my eyelids, but sleep did not come. my memory as if replayed the pictures of what he had experienced. My thoughts were in a strange round dance. I knew it was from fatigue, from the mixture of feelings experienced today. Then a fog floated in. It was as thick as the one that hid the earth from us when we were going to the target, returning home. I began to reconstruct in my memory the conversation with Klubov, to think about him. Captain Klubov arrived in the regiment at about the same time as me. From the first meeting I felt sympathy for him. It happens like that, you like a man somehow at once. And I wasn't mistaken. He was an excellent expert in military equipment, a fine specialist, a skillful organizer. Tight, disciplined, he demanded the statutory order and from his subordinates. Sloppiness, said Captain Klubov, the enemy of discipline. And without discipline there is no army. Soon I was convinced that I was not alone in my sympathy for the engineer, for honesty, fairness and responsiveness, for excellent knowledge of military equipment and skill. Klubov became respected by all the personnel of the regiment. It was a well-deserved authority won not by phrase, not by panache, but by deed,